2, fractions with different denominators. We just did fractions with common denominators. Now we have different denominators. And our vocabulary is we're on page 238 in your book. Okay, so our vocabulary is least common denominator, LCD. The least common denominator, the denominator is the bottom number of the fraction. So like for example, 1/3 plus 2/5. We want to find the common denominator for 3 and 5. So the least common denominator would be the smallest number the denominators can divide into. So the least common denominator for this one would be 15. You would rename both of them to have a 15 on the bottom because 5 times 3 is 15 and 3 times 5. You don't always have to use the least common denominator, but remember the smaller the number you use, the less simplifying you would have to do at the end. So let's take a look at these. Example number 1, 7/8 plus -2/5. Now here's where I write them different. I write them like this. Okay? I cannot add these because the denominators are not the same. So I have to think, what is the common denominator for 8 and for 5? So what can both of those go into? Right away I see 40. I'm trying to think, is there something smaller? 20? No, I think it's 40. Even if it's not, if we have to reduce a little at the end, that'll be okay. And then renaming the fractions, you have to go 5 times 8 got us 40. So you take 2 times 8, and you have to be careful. There's a negative right there, so that's going to be -16. Then 8 times 5 is 40, so 7 times 5 is 35. So now I add 35 and -16, so you would subtract those. 35 minus 16 would be 19/40. And then that's my answer. So I'm showing my work. Write them. I think it's easier to write them this way. Write them vertical, up and down, on top of each other, and then look for those common denominators. So 19/40. And they did the same thing. They write them a little different than I do, but remember there's more than one way to do them. Okay, so common denominators, we got 3/10 minus 5/6. Okay, now right away I see 60 for 10 and 6, but then I think, wait a minute, there's a better one, 30. So 10 times 3 is 30, so 3 times 3 is 9. 6 times 5 is 30, so 5 times 5 is 25. We're subtracting, so it's 9 minus 25. So we go boom, boom, and you subtract, so it'll be -16/30. And that can reduce. Sorry, I think I'm going to sneeze. So it'll be negative, let's see, we can take 2 into both of those, 8/15. You could chop them both in half. Let's see if that comes out right. And then they reduced it. Yep. Okay, so here's our guided practice. Find the sum or difference, then simplify if possible. So 1/3 plus 3/8. Okay, what's the least common denominator for 3 and 8? 12, no, 24. So times 3 would be 9, times 8 would be 8. So I'm getting 17/24. Yep, there we go. Common denominator for 4 and 10. I want to think 40, but 20 is better. If you put 40, it'd be okay. You just have to reduce more at the end. Times 2, that would be 18. Times 5, that's 15. 15 minus 18 is -3/20. And see, they used 40 and had to reduce, and we didn't. So Haha, see, right? Okay, 5/12 plus -7/9. All right, 12 and 9. What's a good common denominator for 12 and 9? 24, no. 12, 36. 36. Kind of helps if you know your facts, right? 9 times 4 is 36. So times 4, remember that's a -7, so it's going to be -28. 12 times 3, so 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 plus -28 is -13 over 36, and that can't reduce. They used 108. Oosh. I don't want to reduce that. I don't know about you guys. Oh, this one, look, we're only going to have to change one. 2/8 plus 7/16. 16 is the common denominator. That already has a 16 times 2 times 2. That would be 4. So 11/16. Well, I don't know why they're using such big numbers unless I missed something. 1/6 minus 11/15. So 1/6 minus 11/15. The common denominator, what do you think, 30? 6 times 5, 1 times 5 is 5, 15 times 2, 11 times 2 is 22. We're minusing 5 minus 22. Boom, boom, so take 5 off, -17 over 30. They must just multiply the two numbers together to get it and then reduce. All right, last one on this one before example number 2. Find the sum or difference. So 30 -4 over 33 minus 1 over 11. That stays the same. 33 is going to be our common denominator times 3 times 3. So it's -4 minus 3. I'm just going to write that so I remember it all, and I'm going to boom, boom. So I get -7 over 33. And notice most of those didn't have to reduce, did they? Because you know why? We used the least common denominator. Sometimes they didn't, so they had to reduce a little bit more than we did. Okay, simplifying variable expressions. Now here's those like terms again. So what we're going to do is, don't have common denominators, okay? So I'm going to write them on top of each other again like I was. Okay, we have to get common denominator for 6 and 5. So you do it just like we did before. It's 30. 6 times 5, so I do x times 5, which is 5x, times 6, so I do this times 6, I should use the dot, which is 12x. So now I have 12x minus 5x, which is 7x over 30. That should be the answer. There it is. Look at this. Ooh, they're trying to trick us. 5y plus 7/8. 5 over y. Now, how are you going to get a common denominator for 8 and y? Remember, one way to get common denominators is to just multiply the two together. So 8y, the common denominator for 8 and y will be 8y. So what do you have to take times 8 to get 8y? You take times y. So we take this times y, it would be 7y. This we take times 8. This we take times 8, that would be 40. Now we have 40 plus 7y. Well, we can't do that. All over 8y. I think that's as far as we can go. Let's see what they do. Yep. So anytime you have a letter and a number, you just treat them the same way. Okay, modeling with mixed numbers. To find the length of the remaining piece of wood described on page 238, first write a verbal model. So over there it says a board is 36 5/8 inches long. And this is on the top of, right underneath the picture on 5.2, right next to the vocabulary. You cut off a piece 12 3/4 inches long. The saw blade destroys another 1/16 inch of wood, which is equal to its length. What is the length of the remaining piece of wood? Okay, so what was the original length of the board? So for this one right here, we're going to put 36 and 5/8 minus, what did we cut off? We cut off 12 and 3/4 plus the blade destroyed 1/16 of it. And that's going to equal what's left, L. So let's do this part first. 12 and 3/4 plus 1/16. Common denominator would be 16. That one stays the same, times 4, so 12. 12, that'd be 13/16. So 12 and 13/16. So we need to take 36 and 5/8 minus 12 and 13/16. Common denominator is going to be 16 times 2 times 2. 10/16 minus 13. That's a 13. It's hard to read. 13/16. Can't do it. Got to borrow. 35. Add 16 to the top. 26 minus 13 is 13. 35 minus 12 is 23. So you should have 23 and 13/16 inches left. Let's see what happens here. There's them doing, that's what we did. Exactly what we did. We got it. There it is. Find the sum and the difference of 2/5 and 2/z. Okay, so let's add it first. So we're going to go, I find my pin, here we go. 2/5 plus 2/z. I'm going to put a line through mine. So common denominator for 5 and z is 5z. Remember, just multiply them together. So to get 5z, you would take it times 5. So that's going to be a 10. Times that by z. So 2 times z is 2z. So 2z plus 10. We can't add those because they're not like terms, all over 5z. That's the sum. That's adding. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. 2/5 minus 2/z. Our common denominator is 5z again. These are going to stay the same. So this time it'll be just 2z minus 10 over 5z. I think that's right. Let's see what they came up with. Yep. What if you cut 4 5/6 inches off the original piece of wood? What's the length of the remaining piece of wood? So the original piece of wood on that one problem was 36 and 5/8, and now we're going to cut off 4 and 5/6. Okay, that's the problem we need to do. What's the common denominator for 8 and 6? 24 is the best one. 6 times 4, 5 times 4, 8 times 3, 5 times 3. I'll have to borrow 35, add a 24 up there, that's going to be 39. 19/24 31 and 19/24 inches. Uh-oh. I made a mistake. It says something different. 30 times 3. Did I write that one right? 30. Huh. And they're going to say that. See, where did I mess up? They must have. I wonder if they have the wrong answer in the book. It's got to be it, right? I couldn't make a mistake. 6 and 8, 24 times 4 times 4. 15, add 24, that's 39. Huh. I think I'm right. And we'll just go with it. All right, so get those common denominators. Make sure you show your work. See you next time.